Hey, Secret Invasion Week 2. The second episode's out. I've seen it. I want to talk about it. Let's go. Okay, so right off the bat, I love the energy that this show has. I feel like a lot of MCU shows, a lot of superhero shows in general, they kind of focus a little too much on, big power displays and big, oh, what's the next, fight that's going to happen. And I get that because I love superhero stuff. I'm always down for a good Clash of the Titans superhero battle. That's all good stuff. But if you're going to have a universe like Marvel does, which is so cohesive and so huge and there's always something going on, I kind of want to see other sides. That's what I liked about Daredevil. That's part of what made Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I guess, good. It's better than I remembered, and I feel weird about that, actually. So anyway, that's an aside. The point is, I really like that Secret Invasion gives them a chance to explore a different side of the universe. See something a little different. I felt Werewolf by Night did the same thing, in a completely different direction, where that went horror. This gets to go spy thriller, and that's what this show is, at least so far. It's a spy thriller, and it commits to that, which I'm really happy about. That was a necessity to make this show work, at least this version of this show. I read the Secret Invasion storyline in the comics, and it's good. It's fine. I do think that's one thing that I had to get over with this show is I was sort of expecting it to be a little bit more like the Secret Invasion comics than it is, where the comics were big, bombastic. You're finding out that Spider-Woman, I think, was a Skrull, and they're maybe killing Mr. Fantastic. Like, a lot happens in that book, and you find out that a bunch of superheroes are Skrulls and all that's going on. I think if they had tried to do that in a show, it would feel either too big or too small, or trying to be too big, and none of those are good things. I think what they're going for with this Fury-centric, because we were never really going to get a Fury show, because I think you just wouldn't have the draw. Not that Nick Fury is a popular character, not that Samuel L. Jackson wouldn't be great in that, but just I wonder if people would go to see a Fury show. The Secret Invasion, you've got something. You've got a little hook, a little thing that gets you connected to it. The Skrulls, the invasion, the aliens, the 50s kind of spy thriller feel. It's all great. And I guess that's what I'm saying. The tone of this show is extraordinary. Like, it feels darker, but not in a, oh, we're dark, Batman kind of way. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be dark. It's just dealing with darker themes, of like, I love that Nick Fury is finally getting an arc here. He's truly having to grapple with not being the guy that he used to be. And part of me is worried that they're going to end with it like, oh, he was a Skrull the whole time. There might be a way to do that would work. I don't think that that's a good idea. I think you kind of have to, if you're going to give him an arc and if you're going to center the show around him, pulling the rug out from under us right at the end, that would be really disappointing. I still like what Jackson's bringing to this. This one, you get to see a little bit more into his character. Love the scene between him and Don Cheadle. The War Machine, who's now more of a political figure than anything else, and then the Nick Fury, who's more of a forgotten hero than anything else. Like, those two kind of combating each other, and Fury having to deal with the ramifications of his actions, I think that's really strong, and I think it serves his character well. I hope that's not the last we see of Rhodey. He might be a Skrull. I don't know if I've mentioned that before, but I could see that. I guess anybody could be a Skrull, but I think he might be. This also isn't just Fury's show, and I think that's really interesting. I feel like the villain, Gravik, has an interesting character, like something that I wasn't prepared to be engaged by. I expected him to be more mustache-twisting bad guy than, like, interesting character, and I think he really is something completely unique. A guy who's been hurt by war, lost his parents, and feels betrayed. That's all super interesting. Not to mention Gaia, Talos' daughter. I like that she is kind of on the fence. I like that she's working both sides a little bit, trying to figure out where she lands. That's an interesting character. Talos is an interesting character. I love the reveal that he's been keeping all of these Skrulls from Fury. I think that plays into the dynamic that Fury's dealing with of not anymore being the guy that knows everything. And it tells us a lot more about Talos, where he really does care about his people. And that you could kind of question that if we didn't get a couple of pieces of information that kind of urged us in that direction. There's just a lot going on in the show, and part of me says that's really good. Part of me is a little bit unsure about where they're going. I mean, it's only 6 episodes, and I love Marvel. I love the MCU. I love the shows, most of them, but I think they do have a problem with kind of getting up to the second to last episode, and you're like, how are they going to resolve all of this? And then the last episode is just, it just feels like they really didn't plan for it to be, it feels like it could be 2 or 3 episodes. So with it being, I think, shorter than a lot of the other ones, I'm kind of mixed about. I will say so far though, with the first and second episode, that really does come together to feel like the first act of a story. So if it is going to be 6 episodes, if the next 2 feel like the second act, then we're going to be fine. It just, I don't know that I can trust that that's how that's going to go, because the pacing on these shows has not been awesome so far. Hopefully this is a change, but I just don't know. You never know. I think I mentioned this in the last video, but the pacing is a lot slower than I was expecting, and I think that's a really good thing. It feels like we're marching toward an inevitable, and that's cool. That's really cool, because you want this to feel, I mean, it's supposed to be an invasion. It needs to live up to that name. Where people were upset that Age of Ultron wasn't an age, it was like a weekend of Ultron. I feel like this really does feel like a secret invasion. It doesn't feel like a secret, you got hoodwinked a couple of times. Like it feels like an invasion, and I like that. Going into full spoilers, end of the episode reveal, Nick Fury has a wife. I don't know that he mentioned that before. I don't think we knew about that at all. That's cool, that's exciting. Or, I guess she might be a girlfriend, but it seemed like they owned a home. I don't know, it doesn't matter. He has a person. Well, yeah, a person who's also a Skrull. My wife very astutely noticed that she is the woman who brought Gravik to Fury at the beginning. I would completely miss that because I am dumb. But I think that must mean that Fury knows that she's a Skrull. I don't know why they played it like it's her changing back into a person. I'm not sure what the point of that was exactly, other than just maybe to get some discourse started. Maybe so that we would recognize her later. I don't totally know, but either way, it works. It's a good reveal. I like that we still don't know almost anything about Fury. That's fun. I feel like we're learning Fury in this show, and he's been in the MCU since, I think, Iron Man 2. So yeah, that's cool. It's fun to see more about him and get to know him more. I truly appreciate that Marvel isn't doing the thing they did with Hawkeye, where it's like, oh, who's the villain? We don't know. It could be anybody. It could be, and then they're like, yeah, it's this guy from a show that may or may not be in canon. It felt like they saw WandaVision and then played the Kingpin reveal completely differently than they had planned, because it fit that, get people guessing because people were talking about WandaVision. I think that's dumb. I don't think that's the way to do that. Same thing with the, whatever her name is, Carter, Power Broker, I think. Yeah, it's just, that's a dumb reveal. We hear about this Power Broker, and then we're like, it's somebody who has connections to the US military, and they have a bunch of money and a way to get a bunch of stuff, and then we meet Carter, and she's like, Peggy? No, Peggy's the, and then we meet, what the fuck what is her name? Terry Carter? Sharon Carter. Then we meet Sharon Carter again, and she's like, oh, I have all this stuff. I have a bunch of stuff, and I used to be connected to the military. And then 4 episodes later, they're like, oh, she was the Power Broker. We got you. And everyone on the internet was like, no, you didn't. You didn't at all. We saw her immediately and thought, oh, so that's the Power Broker then. Cool. I appreciate that Secret Invasion isn't even trying to do that. There's no big secret. The only thing that brought up some questions for me was the series of you got a little piece of Groot, and I think Cull Obsidian, and one of the Frost Giants, maybe? I don't remember. But there was a series of DNA from random super beings. I assume that we're going toward Super Skrull. Probably not the get all the powers of the Fantastic Four Super Skrull, maybe eventually. But right now, I assume it's a genetically modified Skrull that has powers from things that they can already pull off of. Pretty cool. I think that's a neat idea. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, I hope that, that's a deep enough cut that there's no way they're going to try to play that as some huge reveal of oh, it was a character. They're going to be like, oh, here's a new thing, which I always appreciate, because anytime, Reed Richards in Multiverse of Madness, when he shows up, there's always that feeling of oh, wow, that's Reed Richards. And then a little bit of that feeling of like, oh, this is the first time we ever see Reed Richards. And if like a new fan of Marvel came in and saw that, they'd be like, cool, it's 4-man. It's a 4 guy. And if you didn't already know who that was, and if you didn't already have the extra layer of everybody wanting John Krasinski to play him, feels kind of weird. Same deal, Flash. Spoilers for Flash. Same deal with the like Nick Cage as Superman thing. Of course, I got happy about that because it's like the weirdest inside baseball long-running joke about a Superman movie that never got made. But like, I know for a fact that like the people sitting next to me, my wife saw that movie, and at the end of it, she turned to me and she said, "Was that Nicolas Cage?" And I said, "Yeah." And then I had to explain it. So it's just always like a bold move to kind of go for those deep cut references. So I never loved that. I like the idea that they're just going to introduce Super Skrull, hopefully, I think, as a new thing, just a new concept, the same way they did regular Skrulls. That's much better. Said a lot of positives, a couple of negatives. The writing is a little weird. Some of the time the writing's really, really good, and then some of the time it's a little clunky. It just feels hokey, and like they just knew that they had to get to a certain point, so they just write whatever to get them to that information drop. It's fine. Like, it's a spy thing. There's a lot of that in spy shows and movies, so I understand, but it also, like, a couple of times it feels a little bit like, why are we here? How did we get here? This is like a minor grievance at this point, but Nick Fury is supposed to be the, like, super agent, right? He's supposed to be, like, the smartest guy, not the smartest guy, but, like, the cleverest, one step ahead of everybody guy. And I get that they're trying to tell us that he's not that anymore in this show, and I'm great. I'm all here for that. What I don't totally love is that he just randomly tells so many people about the Skrulls and the Skrull faction that's going on. Like, he has no idea that Rhodey isn't a Skrull. How would he possibly know? He didn't do any tests. I think there's an argument that maybe he doesn't think that Skrulls have gotten, infiltrated the high-ups like that, but he doesn't know. There's no way to know. Like, it's not, it would take one 10-second window for them to grab a guy, replace the guy, become new guy. Like, that's all it takes. So at this point, anybody could be a Skrull, and Fury should know that. So him not even trying to, like, ask some questions for Rhodey to, like, suss out whether or not he's a Skrull seemed kind of weird to me. I can't remember her name. I'm sure that it'll come up, or I'll look it up at some point. But the other lady who's running around and doing spy stuff, she's fun. I like when she just cuts a Skrull's finger off and was like, cool, there you go. Proof. I like that. That's fun. I wish there was more of that. Those really are all my negatives for the show. I really like this show so far. I think it's a shame that not more people are watching this. This is kind of the boost that Marvel has needed, I think, for people to be a little more grounded. It's the far opposite of Love and Thunder. It feels like something that's is completely not new, but completely grounded in the MCU, and I really like that. And I wish more people were kind of getting back on it. I know that's a lot of people just, I guess it's the weirdest thing. It like got popular enough that people just kind of started jumping off the bandwagon, and then I think a couple of, granted, not spectacular projects came out, so I understand why some people might be a little bit hesitant, but there's so much, I don't know, like weird aggression against the MCU right now, and I'm not loving that because I'm still a fan. Like, and it feels weird to me to tell people that I still like the MCU. I had a really interesting debate with a guy, not even debate, just an interesting discussion with a guy on a different channel. And he was, in the comments, he was like, I hated all of Phase 4. And I was like, why? Like, I don't understand that feeling, even if it's not all your cup of tea. I totally get that. But, not liking any of it, or not liking any of it outside of Spider-Man, and I'm trying to think what the other, there's a couple that they all reference as like, well, that's fine. Maybe Moon Knight sometimes Shang-Chi. I don't know, it's a whole thing. I could go for hours. But I don't get this aggression against the MCU. I still think it's great. And this is incredibly great. Like, this and Guardians 3 have both been some of the better MCU as far as I'm concerned. So I can't say that definitively for this show because it is just 2 episodes in, but it's awesome so far. It's a great start. Let me know what you think of Secret Invasion so far. I want to know your theories, your thoughts. What are you enjoying? What are you not enjoying? Down in the comments. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell. Is that also the notification thing? I never know. is there like a smiley face? I am so out of touch on what this is. Just hit whatever buttons you feel like you should hit, or don't, because I am not your dad.